The confused South American Revolution, and set of revolutions, like the South American continent itself, is doubtless a great confused phenomenon, worthy of better knowledge than men yet have of it. Several books, of which we here name a few known to us, have been written on the subject, but bad books mostly, and productive of almost no effect. The heroes of South America have not yet succeeded in picturing any image of themselves, much less any true image of themselves, in the cis-Atlantic mind or memory. Iterbide, the Napoleon of Mexico, a great man in that narrow country, who was he? He made the thrice-celebrated Plan of Iguala, a constitution of no continuance. He became Emperor of Mexico, most serene, Augustin I, was deposed, banished to Leghorn, to London, decided on returning, landed on the shore at Tampico, and was there met and shot. This, in a vague sort, is what the world knows of the Napoleon of Mexico, most serene Augustin I, most unfortunate Augustin the last. He did himself publish memoirs or memorials, but few can read them. Oblivion, and the deserts of Panama, have swallowed the spray of Don Agustin, vate caruit sacro. And Bolivar, the Washington of Colombia, Liberator Bolivar, he too is gone without his fame. Melancholy lithographs represent to us a long-faced, square-browed man of stern, considerate, consciously considerate aspect, mildly aquiline form of nose, with terrible angularity of jaw, and deep dark eyes, somewhat too close together, for which latter circumstance we earnestly hope the lithograph alone is to blame. This is Liberator Bolivar, a man of much hard fighting, hard writing, of manifold achievements, distresses, heroisms, and histrionisms in this world, a many-counseled, much-enduring man, now dead and gone, of whom, except that melancholy lithograph, the cultivated European public knows as good as nothing. Yet did he not fly hither and thither, often in the most desperate manner, with wild cavalry clad in blankets, with war of liberation, to the death? Clad in blankets, ponchos the South Americans call them. It is a square blanket, with a short slit in the center, which you draw over your head and so leave hanging. Many a liberative cavalier has ridden, in those hot climates, without further dress at all, and fought handsomely too, wrapping the blanket round his arm when it came to the charge. With such cavalry, and artillery and infantry to match, Bolivar has ridden, fighting all the way, through torrid deserts, hot mud swamps, through ice chasms beyond the curve of perpetual frost. More miles than Ulysses ever sailed. Let the coming Homers take note of it. He has marched over the Andes more than once, a feat analogous to Hannibal's, and seemed to think little of it. Often beaten, banished from the firm land, he always returned again, truculently fought again. He gained in the Cumana regions the immortal victory of Carabobo and several others. Under him was gained the finishing immortal victory of Ayacucho in Peru, where old Spain, for the last time, burnt powder in those latitudes, and then fled without return. He was dictator, liberator, almost emperor, if he had lived. Some 3 times over did he, in solemn Colombian parliament, lay down his dictatorship with Washington eloquence, and as often, on pressing request, take it up again, being a man indispensable. Thrice, or at least twice, did he, in different places, painfully construct a free constitution, constituting of, quote, 2 chambers and a supreme governor for life, with liberty to name a successor, unquote. The reasonablest democratic constitution you could well construct. And twice, or at least once, did the people, on trial, declare it disagreeable. He was of old well known in Paris, in the dissolute, the philosophical, political, and other circles there. He is shown in many a gay Parisian soiree, this Simon Bolivar, and he, in his later years, in autumn 1825, rode triumphant into Potosi and the fabulous Inca cities, with clouds of feathered Indians somersetting and war-whooping round him. And, quote, as the famed Cerro, metalliferous mountain, came in sight, the bells all pealed out, and there was a thunder of artillery, unquote, says General Miller. If this is not a Ulysses, Politlus and Polymetus, a much-enduring and many-counseled man, where was there one? Truly a Ulysses whose history were worth its ink, had the Homer that could do it made his appearance. Of General San Martin, too, there will be something to said. General San Martin, when we last saw him, 20 years ago or more, through the organs of the authentic Mr. Myers, had a handsome house in Mendoza, and, quote, his own portrait, as I remarked, hung up between those of Napoleon and the Duke of Wellington, unquote. In Mendoza, cheerful, mud-built, whitewashed town, seated at the eastern base of the Andes, quote, with its shady public walk well paved and swept, unquote, looking out pleasantly, on this hand, over wide horizons of pampa wilderness, pleasantly on that, to the rocky chain, Cordillera, as they call it, of the sky-piercing mountains capped in snow, or with volcanic fumes issuing from them, there dwelt ex-generalissimo San Martin, ruminating past adventures over half the world, and had his portrait hung up between Napoleon's and the Duke of Wellington's. Did the reader ever hear of San Martin's march over the Andes in Chile? It is a feat worth looking at, comparable, most likely, to Hannibal's march over the Alps, while there was yet no Simplon or Mount Cenis highway, and it transacted itself in the year 1817. South American armies think little of picking their way through the gullies of the Andes, so the Buenos Aires people, having driven out their own Spaniards, and established the reign of freedom, though in a precarious manner, thought it were now good to drive the Spaniards out of Chile, and establish the reign of freedom there also instead, whereupon San Martin, commander at Mendoza, was appointed to do it. By way of preparation, for he began from afar, San Martin, while an army is getting ready at Mendoza, assembles, quote, at the ford of San Carlos by the Aguanda River, unquote, some days' journey to the south, all attainable tribes of the Pehuenche Indians to a solemn palaver, so they name it, and civic entertainment, on the esplanade there. The ceremonies and deliberations, as described by General Miller, are somewhat surprising. Still more the concluding civic feast, which lasts for 3 days, which consists of horse's flesh for the solid part, and horse's blood with ardent spirits ad libitum for such liquid, consumed with such alacrity, with such results as one may fancy. However, the women had prudently removed all the arms beforehand, nay, quote, 5 or 6 of these poor women, taking it by turns, were always found in a sober state, watching over the rest, unquote, so that comparatively little mischief was done, and only, quote, 1 or 2, unquote, deaths by quarrel took place. The Pehuenches, having drunk their ardent water and horse's blood in this manner, and sworn eternal friendship to San Martin, went home, and communicated to his enemies, across the Andes, the road he meant to take. This was what San Martin had foreseen and meant, the knowing man. He hastened his preparations, got his artillery slung on poles, his men equipped with knapsacks and haversacks, his mules in readiness, and, in all stillness, set forth for Mendoza by another road. Few things in late war, according to General Miller, have been more noteworthy than this march. The long straggling line of soldiers, 6,000 and odd, with their quadrupeds and baggage, winding through the heart of the Andes, breaking for a brief moment the old abysmal solitudes. For you fare along, on some narrow roadway, through stony labyrinths, and under your feet, on that, the roar of mountain cataracts, horror of bottomless chasms, the very winds and echoes howling on you in an almost preternatural manner. Towering rock barriers rise sky-high before you, and behind you, and around you. Intricate the outgate. The roadway is narrow, footing none of the best. Sharp turns there are, where it will behoove you to mind your paces. One false step, and you will need no second. In the gloomy jaws of the abyss you vanish, and the spectral winds howl requiem. Somewhat better are the suspension bridges, made of bamboo and leather. Though they swing like seesaws, men are stationed with lassos to gin you dexterously and fish you up from the torrent if you trip there. Through this kind of country did San Martin march, straight towards Santiago to fight the Spaniards and deliver Chile. For ammunition wagons he had soras, sledges, canoe-shaped boxes made of dried bullside. His cannons were carried on the back of mules, each cannon on 2 mules, judiciously harnessed. On the pack saddle of your foremost mule there rested with firm girths a long strong pole, the other end of which, forked end, we suppose, rested, with like girths, on the pack saddle of the hindmost mule. Your cannon was slung with leathern straps on this pole, and so traveled, swaying and dangling, yet moderately secure. In the knapsack of each soldier was 8 days' provender, dried beef ground into snuff powder, with a modicum of pepper, and a slight seasoning of biscuit or maize meal, quote, store of onions, of garlic, unquote, was not wanting. Paraguay tea could be boiled at eventide, by fire of scrub bushes, or almost of rock lichens and dried mule dung. No further baggage was permitted. Each soldier lay, at night, wrapped in his poncho, with his knapsack for pillow, under the canopy of heaven, lullabied by hard travail, and sank soon enough into steady nose melody, into the foolishest rough colt dance of unimaginable dreams. Had he not left much behind him in the pampas, mother, mistress, what not, and was like to find somewhat, if he ever got across to Chile living? What an entity, one of those night-leaguers of San Martin, all steadily snoring there, in the heart of the Andes, under the eternal stars. Wayworn sentries with difficulty keep themselves awake. Tired mules chew barley rations, or doze on 3 legs. The feeble watchfire will hardly kindle a cigar. Canopus and the Southern Cross glitter down, and all snores steadily, begirt by granite deserts, looked on by the constellations in that manner. San Martin's improvident soldiers ate out their week's rations, almost in half the time, and for the last 3 days had to rush on, spurred by hunger. This also the knowing San Martin had foreseen, and knew that they could bear it, these rugged gauchos of his, nay, that they would march all the faster for it. On the 8th day, hungry as wolves, swift and sudden as a torrent from the mountains, they disembogued, straight towards Santiago, to the astonishment of men, struck the doubly astonished Spaniards into dire misgivings, and then, in pitched fight, after due maneuvers, into total defeat, on the plains of Maipo, and again, positively for the last time, on the plains or heights of Chacabuco, and completed the deliverance of Chile, as was thought, forever and a day.